In 1800, London is the richest city on earth. But look just behind it: Beijing, Guangzhou, Tokyo, Istanbul. For almost all of recorded history, this is what the top of the list looked like. Asian and ancient. The richest cities in the world were where the most people had always lived. London in 1800 is the strange new arrival. And then the machines start. The Industrial Revolution gives a handful of Western cities something no city has ever had before: factories, steam, coal, and the output of 100 workers from the hands of one. London pulls away. The Asian giants with no industry simply stand still as the West accelerates. The oldest hierarchy on Earth begins to invert. London becomes the first true world city, the banking house and workshop of an empire that circles the globe. Paris climbs behind it. Across the ocean, New York begins to stir. And Beijing and Guangzhou, the giants of the old world, slide quietly down the board year after year, as if the future has simply stopped including them. By 1900, London stands at its absolute peak, a single city holding roughly half of all the wealth on this entire chart. The British Empire at high noon. Nothing in history has ever been this dominant. But right on its shoulder, rising fast, is the city that will take it all: New York. The torch crosses the Atlantic. Sometime in the early 20th century, New York overtakes London and doesn't look back. Skyscrapers, Wall Street, the Assembly Line, the center of the world economy moves to Manhattan, and it will stay somewhere in America for the better part of 100 years. Through Depression and World War, the Western cities own the top of the board: New York, London, Paris. Asia is colonized, occupied, or at war, and nowhere near the lead. The divergence that started with a few English factories is now total. The richest places on Earth and the most populated places on Earth have never been further apart. But out of the ashes, something stirs in the east. Tokyo and Osaka begin to climb. Japan, the first Asian economy to beat the West at its own industrial game. It's the first crack in 200 years of Western dominance, and almost nobody sees where it leads. Tokyo surges. By the 1980s, it's pressing on New York itself, the first Asian city in 2 centuries to threaten the very top of the world. The world calls it a miracle and assumes it's a one-off. It is not a one-off. It is a preview. Japan stalls, but the door it opened stays open. And behind Tokyo, a far larger shadow begins to move. China, Shanghai, Beijing, Guangzhou, and a fishing town called Shenzhen. Cities this chart had written off a century before start, very quietly, to climb. What follows is the fastest urban boom in the history of the species. Shanghai and Shenzhen go from afterthoughts to giants inside a single generation. The Asian cities that collapsed down the rankings in the 1800s are one by one clawing their way back up. And here is where the real data ends. Tokyo on top, New York and Los Angeles right behind. Paris and London now far below cities they once dwarfed. But the fastest rising name on the whole board is Shanghai, with Beijing, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen close behind. Everything past this point is a projection, a scenario, not a forecast. So watch where the line is pointing. Because as China's growth matures, the model hands the baton to the next giant, India. Delhi and Mumbai begin a climb that looks almost exactly like New York's 100 years earlier. The same steep, unstoppable line, drawn by the same thing, a vast population finally industrializing. The top of the board fills with names that were rounding errors in 1900. Delhi, Mumbai, Shanghai, Dhaka, Jakarta, Cairo. The global South, where the overwhelming majority of human beings actually live, finally starts to show up in the world's wealth, and not just its population. By the 2080s, the projection puts Delhi at number 1, Shanghai, 2nd. New York clings to 3rd, Tokyo, 4th, Mumbai, 5th. The richest cities on the planet are once again mostly Asian, exactly as they were before any of this began. And that is the entire story, in one chart. For 3 centuries, the West pulled ahead and passed the crown among itself, London to New York to Tokyo. But step back far enough, and the Industrial Revolution stops looking like the new normal and starts looking like a 200-year interruption. The map of the world's wealth isn't being redrawn. It's being redrawn back to almost exactly where it sat in 1800.